sir. And shall I time you for 30 minutes, Drew? Just so
Sure.
it's late your time. I'm really like, wow, what a
I'll,
guy.
yeah, you can time me. I'll make sure to keep it to 30 minutes, but if I'm going off the rails, you can
I trust
give me
you
a
as much
sign.
as anybody on the planet, Drew. You know that.
Okay.
It's all yours.
I'm going to share my screen for this, so hopefully you can see that, and you can make it as large or small as you want. Can you everyone see that? The title slide, Design and Facilitation of Collaborative Work.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So scribing or graphic recording or sketchnoting, whatever you call it, is an important tool in the collaborative process because it's an important tool of communication. But even if I don't ever communicate these notes, or even if I don't ever share them with anyone, I often take notes when I listen to talks or presentations or whatever, because just the physical act of drawing makes me remember the content better. And there's science about that the movement of your body helps move the thoughts of your mind to embed the thought, to embed it and help that information sink in more. So the physical act of drawing always is helpful, whether you're going to share it or not. But when I talk about drawing with people, they throw up their hands immediately and they say, I can barely draw a stick figure. But in reality, all you need to do is draw a stick figure in order to communicate information, and even to communicate complex information. And that is because my former editor at the New Yorker magazine told me that drawing is not about the ink, it's about the think. It's about the ideas that you have in your mind, and it's about how your brain works and not about how your arm works. So visual communication is really about a language. Unfortunately, it's a language that I think we are all familiar with and we all know already. So I want to start here. This is today's, I wish the news was better, but I wish this is today's front page of the Washington Post. And I'm showing you this because I think it helps to show how information is presented. And so what are the elements of communication that are present on this page?
Colors, pictures.
Colors, yep. Colors,
some things
pictures.
Are bolded, headlines.
Yep. Relative size.
Right.
Of the picture and the text.
There's only 3 or 4 elements. There's text, there's pictures, and there's some graphics, and they're different colors and they're different sizes. And I think in good design, which this is, you can see that those elements all play a role, and they all mean something. So sorry, when you see this, all right, technical problems. When you see that, that size font on the page, you know that that's a headline. And you know that when you see that size font, but in smaller areas, you know that those are all headlines. When you see the font that doesn't have the serifs on it, which is what all these text bodies are, you know that that's kind of additional information that adds to the headline. And you can see this section here, the opinion section, is set up in white, so that you know that when you open the Washington Post and you see the stories are in white boxes as opposed to these gray boxes, you know that that's opinion as opposed to news. So in good design, it's all these relatively simple elements, but everything plays a role in telling a story. And I should ask, do you think is there a story? Is there a narrative here? Or I should say, in what sense do you think there is a narrative?
I remember hearing recently that newspapers were designed to like get your eye's attention to read throughout the whole newspaper, and I think the same idea applies here. Obviously, you start in the upper left because it's the biggest box and everything is big. The image is big. The headline is the biggest. It's the biggest story. And then naturally, you can kind of move just outwards from that.
Yep. Your eye is designed to start here, and then because this is the biggest picture, to move here, and then to kind of move throughout the page. And then you can either, from here, you can either go down or you can go up to the opinions. But there isn't a single narrative, but the paper is designed to kind of take your eye, move your eye through the content in a very in a deliberate fashion. So now look at an example of, this is I listened to a podcast. I scribed a podcast about what the difference was between whiskey and bourbon recently. It was like a 20-minute podcast. But I want you to see if the elements are similar, if the elements of visual communication are similar. Which ones are the same as in the newspaper?
Starting location, upper left.
Yep, I did start in the upper left.
Different colors and kind of bold text.
Yep, exactly. Got text, we have colors. Again, same simple elements.
Boxes.
Boxes. Yep, there's boxes separating elements. I hope that even though scribing and note-taking is done live and you can't really plan everything out in advance, the elements are still the same. You have text, the black text which I wrote, which is the main body of the scribing, which is the main content. You can see that whenever I wanted text to stand out for emphasis, I did it in a different color, like the word anywhere or the Jack Daniels. The arrows indicate the flow of thought, indicate the direction of thought and the flow of information. I tried to keep, you see the orange box that's supposed to represent the information about whiskey, and the light yellow box is supposed to represent bourbon. Whenever I scribe, I try and keep information that's bucketed into a category the same color. I try and do it a lot with something like threats and opportunities. I try and draw threats in red and opportunities in green, for example, just so that when you look at a piece of scribing, especially if you have multiple boards, you can look at a board, and then if you see the red, you know that those are threats instantly. Your eye doesn't have to work to read through to find them all. I often do questions in this cloud shape in the upper left, just so that also when you look at it, you know that if there's a cloud, there's a question, because a lot of times discussions are centered and started by a question. And this fun fact I have at the bottom right, it says apparently women enjoy higher proof spirits due to a larger olfactory center. That doesn't have anything to do with whiskey and bourbon. It's kind of a sidebar, just like the opinion section of the Washington Post was. So that's set apart in a different color. So a lot of the same communication elements are there. And I don't want this to be a theoretical exercise. I want to start drawing. So we're going to have some fun in a second, but I just wanted you to see, these are the main elements of scribing. You have titles, you have text, you have colored text for emphasis. We have symbols, we have images, we have models, which we talked about, and we have lines and shapes. So I'd like to start doing some fun practice, but what I want to show you first of all is going back to the idea that you can only draw a stick figure, so you feel like that's limited, but if all you can draw is one line, you can draw anything. And I'm going to prove that by drawing all the animals in an entire zoo, just by drawing a single line. And I think just by drawing one line, you'll be able to identify what all these animals are.
Drew, can I add to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So I probably have an unfair advantage a little bit, but so yeah, there are 5 main things that I use as well. So which you pointed out as well. There's the titles, which are the main things, which bring you the information of what you're looking at. Then I call the illustrations or the stick figures actors. So they act in the scribe. And then you have relationships, which are the arrows that you connect and flow the information through. And annotation. So you annotated the scribe where it says images all those actors, you gave it an annotation. So the last one is, for me, is frames. So you keep things in a frame that you actually want to enhance. So you said the bourbon and the whiskey. So they're the 5 things: titles, actors, relationships, annotations, and frames. They're the 5 main elements that I would say keep it together.
You're right. That's actually a great way to think about how it's organized. And I think we will do, I think we're going to go in that direction, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, later on in the course, which is why I'm skirting around that for now. But yeah, you're right, Fern. You're totally right. No, it's fine. I could have presented it that way, but we'll touch on that later in the course. So here's how well you can draw, and you probably don't know how well you can draw, but this is it. So let's pretend this is a zoo and there's the ground there. What animal is that?
Elephant.
An antelope.
Elephant.
Right, an elephant. I think an elephant is the winning answer. And see, that's just a single line, a single line of information, but you can tell that it's an elephant. How about this?
Giraffe.
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 Daffy.
Yay. How about this?
Flamingo.
Flamingo.
Baboon.
That's good.
Yeah. We have a lot of animals in the zoo.
A lion.
A lion. Let's do a couple more. You know what that is?
Turtle.
Turtle.
And that one, and part of that one is because the relative size. The other animals are bigger, and even though it's a curve, it's smaller than the other animals. Then if you do this,
Rabbit.
rabbit. Let's do one more. I think this is the hardest one.
Starfish. A snake.
Alligator.
Could be snake. Yeah, I think alligator. There's the body, and then here's you got the jaw open. But it's amazing how you could recognize an alligator just by a line with a bend in it. So the process of drawing information is really simpler than you think it is. It's not complicated. And I want to start by, I'm going to stop sharing, and I want everyone to practice. We're going to do some exercises. So let's see. If everyone has a piece of paper or a whiteboard or something at their disposal and something to draw with, I had in those examples of scribing, I had drawn, as Fern said, lines that show annotations, that show directions and relationships between objects, or borders around ideas. And I had a straight line and a dotted line, but there's an infinite number or type of line that you can draw. So I want you to try and draw 10 different types of lines in addition to straight line, the dotted line. I want to see if you can draw 8 or 9 more types of lines in addition to those. Rick's is a giant whiteboard there. I'm really jealous. And the idea here is when you're scribing or taking notes, that you have a variety of lines, but that each line means something. Each line stands for something, or each line plays a role.
Done.
Who's got 10 different kinds of lines they can hold up? Rob's got nice clear lines. He got dotted line, curved line, a round line. A circle is a line. We got some scribble lines. I like
Afraid
this.
of reading. I was going to get caught out.
I like the signature line. It looks like a signature that's repeated. Fern, hold that up again. Yeah.
That's great for me. Oh, I love
Fern's
it.
got a lot
Fern.
of similarities. I like the dotted line, the broken dotted line. It looks like fireworks. That's great.
Cool.
Ryan's got great diversity of lines. I like the
Yeah.
diamonds.
Yep.
Cool.
Charlie, have a lot of simple lines with a lot of great variation too. Rodri, I like your lines going in all kinds of different directions. Rix is still working up there in the whiteboard.
She's got a big board to fill.
I know. She's got a line with a shadow on it.
Oh,
Okay, so there's an infinite number of lines that you can draw, and so I want you to stick that in your back pocket for later on because we'll be using the lines for something else. Now I want to talk about a part of that scribing elements, which is symbols or graphics, because you'll be taking notes using text, but also why write some words when a simple picture can do, and that's where symbols come in. What is that?
A heart.
Love,
Love,
compassion,
compassion.
sympathy.
It is all those things, or it could be all those things.
My last name. My
It's a
last name.
It's the symbol of a
Lucky,
heart.
you're lucky, lucky.
Oh.
It's not the answer I'm looking for, though. It's a trick question. It's kind of a trick question.
It's a line.
You got a black
It is
card, Mr.
correct.
Ryan.
It is a line. Nice. That's a nice transition from the last lesson to this one.
It's emotion. It's an emotion.
It is an emotion.
it's a symbol.
It's a symbol. It's a symbol of a heart. It's not an actual heart, but it's a symbol of a heart. And the difference is important because does that look like an actual heart?
No.
Or how do you
Not at
think?
all.
Why do you think this symbol represents emotion? Why do you think this symbol represents a heart?
It's an abstract. It's been through the abstractometer.
It has. It's been through the abstractometer for centuries. I think. There's no agreement as to where this heart symbol came from. People think that it's a centuries-old medical diagram from before they knew what a heart looked like, and somebody thought that it was a symmetrical thing that had that shape, and it doesn't. But that just shows you how much power symbols have. Is it's something that bears no relation to what it's supposed to represent, still stands for something as powerful as love. And it's one of the most powerful symbols we have. Everyone understands it, and yet it's an incorrect drawing of a human organ. So a symbol's power comes in from, it's like a shortcut or shorthand representing something that is bigger than itself. And if you think about it, there's symbols that we use every day that we take for granted, like this. What's that?
Power button.
Power button, yeah.
Power button. Why is that the power button? I don't know, but we all recognize that as a power button. And then here's kind of a new one.
Text. Drop
Text.
down menu.
Yeah. Somehow this 3 lines has become instantly recognizable as some people call it the hamburger icon, but everyone recognizes that that's the drop-down menu. So you know that when you see those 3 lines, you're going to have a list of options like a menu. Because symbols there's no governing body that tells you what symbols are defined as. They are kind of depend on the collective consciousness of societies, and so they can go astray, and they can change. So all scribes kind of use this symbol to draw an idea. But as we know, the light bulbs are changing into something which is a lot harder to draw. you know, which looks like that. And does that,
That-
is that,
That is not ever going to catch on. I'm
No.
just saying.
and, but does it need to?
Good
I mean,
point.
the idea of a light bulb representing an idea, does it need to be kind of like going back to the idea of a heart? Does it need to be a physically correct, an anatomically correct representation of a light bulb to be an idea? Does the symbol of a light bulb ever need to change? There's no answer. It kind of depends on what people do with it. It may or it may not. And there are symbols can change, and there are definitely symbols which can be misunderstood. I don't want to belabor the point here, but everyone know what that symbol is? That hand signal?
Okay.
It means A-OK. And in the USA, it means A-OK. I think in Europe, I think it means 0.
And there are places where it's very rude.
Yeah, and there are places where it means a part of the body, which, you know.
Can also mean white power, that symbol too. So just
This
be
can?
careful with this one.
Yes,
Yeah.
it can. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of
So,
like
yeah.
people put that in photos secretly, like white supremacists. They do that in
Really?
photo. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
like our prime minister.
Yep.
Really?
Yes.
Like our prime minister.
Wow, I learned something new. Okay, so let's try and, I know we're we're short on time. How much time do we have left? We have 7 or 8 minutes. I want to just try taking a shot at drawing at, so there's no one right way to draw a symbol. It's just whatever you think is gonna, that doesn't have to represent a physical object, but can represent an idea. I want you to draw these concepts. They are opposites. So if you draw a set of these, if you draw love and hate, you can draw the 2 symbols, and they can part of their effectiveness can come from the fact that they are related to each other somehow and are different than each other.
Do you want to pick one of those, or do we want all 3? All
If you can
3?
do all 6, do it. But if you,
Okay.
it doesn't matter. If you want to try one and really nail it, just try one and nail it. There's no right answer. It's just whatever represents the abstract quality of love. When I do this with kids, I tell them just to draw emojis, but not the emojis that are on their phone, because the heart emoji is already on your phone. So what represents love to you that is drawn a symbol? It could be a piece of pizza. It could be a banjo. But banjo would be hard to draw.
Okay.
Because symbols have great power, it's great to have a shorthand or have a set of symbols that can use, but because they can be overused, it's good to sometimes symbols can lose their power and just turn into a cliche or turn into something that is meaningless because it's used so often. So it's I think it's something to consider, is like how often you're going to use a certain symbol and when you're going to maybe not resort to the same thing and change it up a little bit so you can get someone to notice it. So who's got some that they want to show? If you're in gallery view, you can just hold them up and we can see everyone's at the same time. Ryan's got some violent hate there. Nice. Rob's got some nice simple ones. They're good because they're all really simple and all effective. I like the turtle and the hare.
Rob, yours are the same as mine.
Look
Yeah.
at that. Fern and I have a mind meld going on.
Are you guys in the same
Exactly
room?
same.
Amazing. That's
one of
that
yours is-
facilitator PF thing. That's a facilitator PF thing.
That's
Rob,
amazing.
one of yours is flipping the bird there. I don't know about that one.
It does
Well,
look a little bit like that.
The wrong finger. I should be specific.
I was going to draw, just out of respect for time, we only have a couple minutes left. I was going to draw people, or we can do, what I think is fun to do is like a symbol challenge, to think of some abstract idea like this and see if somebody can come up with a symbol for that. Or if someone else can think of some, we can do like a scribe challenge. If someone can think of something that they would be called to draw on often that has an impossible symbol, we could challenge everyone. That would be good too.
I like the last, like that.
What?
I like the scribe challenge.
Okay.
We have some great scribes on the call here.
Yeah.
I had an idea of the first thing that came to mind was actually a symbol for prototype.
Prototype?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably have one for that, somebody, but.
Prototype.
No, that's a good idea. Let's try and think of a symbol for prototype. I resorted to drawing that, which is what I almost always use for a model or for a kind of first iteration. So I cheated.
Cool.
Ryan, that's good.
I timed out
Nice
and I had to log back in, so I couldn't draw anything. Sorry.
Rob's prototype is iteration, early iteration. Wow. Fern, did you just draw that?
Yeah.
You drew, that's a whole assembly line.
Holy crap.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's a show off fun.
I like
You
Charlie. I
should
like the.
You created earlier, Fern. Is that you just keep that around? Just could no really?
Hey,
That's
Fern,
a
Okay,
good
you
I
Fern.
create for prototype.
I gave Fern the answers ahead of time.
Yeah.
Fern, show me yours again. What is yours again, Fern?
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Charlie, I like your idea on top of a pyramid. It's good. I mean, it's combining two shapes into a new shape, into a new concept.
Do you know what, actually, I did draw I was trying to draw a piece of paper, and then the idea was kind of coming out of the piece of paper, but then I thought it has to have writing on it to know that it's a piece of paper, but it could be a pyramid as well. Like, that's how it looks. Hey,
Well, it's a good that's a great image, an idea coming out of a piece of paper.
this is fun.
Does anyone have any other words or concepts that would be difficult to draw?
I don't have a word, but I have a question for Fern, who speed drew that assembly line, and I'm just wondering is what the threshold is for you to say, like, okay, this symbol is done. And I'm sure it changes, but do you have any rules in terms of like how long should I be drawing a symbol? And this is for me as like a non-artist, or at least that's how I see myself drawing wise. I don't know how much time I should be spending on making the scribe look.
That's
like,
great. That's a great
graphic.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a great question.
That's a really good question, because most of the time what I do is I probably like Drew, I do a bit of cheating. So I prepare myself by how long the conversation is going to be. So if I know that I only have half an hour, or if I know that I have 2 minutes or 1 minute or even 30 seconds, I automatically switch to the simplest things I have. So if I say I'm going to draw business, for example, or enterprise or organization, I literally just do, you know, something that's like that. To me, that's represents organization. You know, it's just a big giant building.
Because you're taking notes, you can annotate it and add to it so that it doesn't have to necessarily stand on its own as a building or whatever. You can label it as organization or enterprise. So, yeah.
Right. So I would go back to say, because I would never stop doodling. I continuously doodle. So like I would just continuously do it. But it all depends on the time that you're going to scribe for.
My history teacher in high school, was a really great teacher, and she would assign us papers. And our question to her was always, how long has it got to be? Does it have to be 2 pages, 5 pages, 10 pages? And her mantra to us was, as long as sufficiently covers the subject. And she just said that day after day after day, as long as sufficiently covers the subject. But it works. And that's what I think of when I draw I could add more detail, or I could add something to it, but I've sufficiently covered the subject, and now I can move on.
You know, there's a weird analogy, but if you ever saw Robin Williams do some just takeoff back, what a genius man. If you watched him over time, there were bits that he totally had down that seemed to come out fully spontaneously. And you go, oh, wow, he's doing that Shakespearean thing that he does. And there's always some twist. It's always right in the moment. It's always right there, but it's never completely whole cloth. It's built from. And Fern, that thing you did is not the first time you've done a thing like that. I would bet.
That's right.
Would you hold that up again? Yeah. No, seriously. It's and there's nothing. That's not to take anything away from it, but that factory assembly line. The smokestack tells you it's a factory. The little thing tells you it's an assembly line. That's brilliant, because it's all right there in that image. And that's a very reusable image, even if you've never done it before. Man, it's so easy. Now that I've seen it, I could probably even do it. It's great. It's wonderful.
You want to do one more and then peace out? Here's one that I always struggle with. Opportunity. It can't be an assembly line.
Drew, I did something like a sunrise, maybe, or maybe there's a horizon.
Yep.
So that you see something on the horizon. Maybe there's an opportunity on the horizon. I don't know. That's the
Yeah.
first idea.
Well, you're not alone in that. We have a lot of other horizons. John, hold that up again.
A little
Yeah.
more to the
Yeah.
side, John.
I'm trying. You got to use your creativity here. I'm setting the bar high for creativity. It's supposed to be like a splitting.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Charlie's got a door. So that's good.
That was a
Fern,
good one.
Ryan, I like the person jumping through the ring, ready to jump through the ring.
That's good.
The big
Yeah.
giant O.
Fern.
Rob, yours reminds me of the Little Prince.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Got
where
a
I
little
took it. That's where I took it from.
Is that opportunity? I don't even know what that is.
It's like a
That's
lotus.
a marijuana leaf.
Yeah, it's a Chinese lotus.
Oh, it's
Chinese
big,
lotus
it's
nose.
big.
Yeah, it's an agave. It's the universal symbol of tequila. There you go.
The opportunity to get loaded.
I'm surprised Fern didn't draw that one.
I had a bit about drawing people, another bit about color, but I'm happy to, unless people want to keep going for another 15 minutes, I'm happy to, whatever you want to do.
I'm going to have to drop.
Okay.
But thanks so much for taking the time. Really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Sure.
2 minutes on people, 2 minutes on colors. A
Okay.
challenge. A challenge for you, sir.
Okay. Let's do the same thing. Then let's do the same thing we did with symbols, but with people. Because if you think about the exercise that we just did, drawing lines, drawing shapes, drawing symbols, people are just people are just a combination of lines and shapes. You know, the way that a 3-year-old draws a person, which is just like a blob with lines coming out, it's good enough for a 3-year-old. Everyone knows that they know that that's a person, so that's good enough for us. And if you add a shape or a symbol to it, that person can become somebody else. So I made a list of other things. Pick one of these: an executive, an astronaut, a yoga teacher, a programmer, or an activist. And think about using your different kinds of lines. Think about using your different kinds of symbols, and think about keeping it really simple. See if you can draw all 5 of these.
Say again.
Me say it again?
Yeah, I got 3 of them. Programmer, activist. Okay.
Ready?
Ready. When you got him, show him. Yeah. Good, Ryan. I like the binary. I like the code. That's great.
Ran out of time, but here.
I like the astronaut with the puffy suit. That's a good way to use a line variety, and doesn't, you know that that's an astronaut by the puffiness of that clothing there. Charlie, I like the simplicity of those. John, good. I like how you've got basically the same character in repetition, but each one has a different element that you can tell them apart from each other.
Yeah.
Good, guys. That's my activist yoga teacher. I did a bonus Supreme Court justice. So
Stay alive, Ruth.
So there's a lot you can do with just simple shapes. All right, I'm going to share my screen again and just talk about color for 2 minutes. Good job, everyone. Thank you for playing along. So I could talk for an hour about color because I think it's important. But one basic thing to know, I think, when taking notes is just to keep it as simple as possible. And there's a lot of colors at your disposal, but too much color, I think, can be hard on the eye. So if you keep a color wheel in front of you, the colors that are next to each other on the wheel are grouped in what we call families. So those reds, the yellows, the greens, the blues, they're all what we call color families. And a good way to use a color combination is to use black for your text, but then when you draw things, keep them in the same color family, but then use a color that's opposite for contrast, for something that will stand out. So you can use as your color palette these blues, purples, and violets, and then when you want to draw something for emphasis, use that yellow that's the opposite from it. The colors on the color wheel, they're related to each other in the fact that the colors that are across each other are opposites. They bring out they're perfectly contrasted to each other in the sense they perfectly complement or contrast each other. They bring out the colors opposite from it. Same thing with these blues, and if you use a palette of these blues and greens, then that red that's across from it is a great color to use for contrast. Or it's best just to keep it simple. Here's some scribing I did a little while ago with just black and red. I think there's nothing wrong with just using one color. You use your black for text, and then you use red when you want to draw something for emphasis. It's really easy to look at.
With gray there, Drew. Nice stuff with gray. Just a word on that.
Yeah. Oh, word on gray?
Yeah.
Gray is a good color to have because gray, your eye reads it as a color, even though it's not. So it's a way to keep a color palette simple. But if you had 2 shades of gray, it looks like you have 2 colors. But because you can use gray in combination with red, and somehow it looks like multiple colors, even though it's not. And the grays are easy on the eye, so you can create a really rich palette with just grays.
I love the one-hit wonder.
You know who that's supposed to be.
That's what I was going to say.
It goes straight to that.
And so if you go back to this example scribing I showed you from earlier, it's how many colors do I have here in this palette?
4 plus gray.
Yeah. I basically have a blue and I have the red and orange. Those would be across from each other on the color wheel, so they contrast each other. And then the gray, which is just gray, basically complements everything. And you don't really need any more than those colors. And I think we talked about how you keep the text in black and then use the colored text for emphasis. Sometimes that's not apparent that you should do that until you look at what happens when you do the opposite. So there's the same scribing where you have the text in really light colors and the kind of arrows and boxes in black. And you see when you look at that, your eye immediately goes to the arrows and to the boxes, but it's a lot harder to read the content. When you try and read the content, your eyes get distracted from it. So there's also another school of thought where you should just use as much color as possible because you have all these markers and you have all these great colors. So why not make it really colorful because that people want to look at? But when you do that, you can see that, again, it's hard to figure out where the flow of information is. You know where to start, but everything has a different value, and there's kind of no hierarchy. There's no narrative. There's no flow for the eye. It's a big riot of color, and it certainly is pretty to look at, but it's hard to follow for as far as information.
Great. That's a great example.
But I must say that's sort of like, this is probably for the basics. For somebody that's accomplished, they do amazing things with all the colors.
Yes, yes. But they're kind of obeying the rules, which are, you know, having each color play a role, and like using blue when blue is required, and not just using blue because it's the next marker in their hand. Yeah. So good scribing and good note taking is really like good design, and you have to do it until it just becomes, those kind of color decisions become instinctual. Anyone else have any questions or any insights or any other learnings that they want to share?
Sorry, Rob. I just wanted to say, Drew, these last 3 examples really drove the color point home for me. I think these are really great examples.
Good. Yeah, I think we kind of take for granted the kind of color choices that we're supposed to use, and just think, why not? Is there a real reason to use one color as opposed to another? But there kind of is, because it's not the ink, it's the think. That's the last word I want to leave with you. Anyway, thanks. I'm glad that you guys all hung around to the end. That's great. Thank you for putting the extra time.
Thanks for doing it.
Sure.
Thank you for the extra time. It must be.
Yeah, thanks, Drew.
It's midnight in New York. What a guy.
It's way past beer o'clock. You guys.
Oh, that's just cruel. That's cruel.
Quarantinis.
Quarantinis.
Yeah, I have nothing further. Good job, everyone. I'm glad you stayed, and I encourage you to, as I know the course is demanding of time and attention, but if you have the chance to take notes on your own, do it. And my scribing doesn't have to be the only notes that go up on the mural. Other people's can go up there too.
Great. Super. Well, let's conclude the recording here, and then we'll talk for a minute about how we make it available to everybody. But again,